So by 2001, the leading figures of the Damascus Spring movement were arrested, 10 of them, and they were sentenced between 2.5 years to 10 years in prison. Then there was another moment, and I think this is important to setting just the stage and the context. In 2005, there was a widespread movement called the Damascus Declaration Movement. It was, again, another gathering of activists. At the height of it, about 270 activists from across the country, in Syria, you see from the far northeast all the way to the southwest, gathered and they formed a declaration, the basis of which they called for comprehensive democratic change in Syria. Definitely Iraq was an important factor. Many of us felt that we didn't need external invasion to do this. This had to be indigenous, internal movement. But we were very clear that we would accept the role for Bashar al-Assad to lead this process, but it has to lead at the end into a democratic Syria. Again, there was a crackdown. The leading figures were arrested in 2008, and they were sentenced to prison. We wait till 2011, and with the stage was set in Tunisia, Egypt. Syria was not isolated. There was a debate, how long will it take for Syria? Many of us felt it was coming. But we debated how long. And I think by March of 2011, the spark came from a city in the south, Daraa. You see it right by the Jordanian border, in which small children, young children, wrote on the wall the same slogans of the Egyptian revolution, the Tahrir Square revolution, that we want freedom. It's your time is up. Bashar al-Assad as a dictator. They were arrested, tortured. Their family went to ask for their release. They were insulted. People took into the street, and the regime immediately opened fire at the first demonstration. So this is, again, I'm giving just a background into how we got to this point.
And then tell us how the coalition came about, how it's perceived today. It seems like it does have some difficulties forming and unifying. Tell us about the coalition a little bit.
Okay. The coalition, I think, is the third phase of a movement of the opposition. The first phase was one of Syrians getting together, trying to show solidarity and support of demonstrators. Remember, this is a revolution that started peaceful. For the first 7 months, it was all peaceful, and the regime never stopped killing Syrians for a single day. Tried to keep the number at, below 20. That was the magic number. So during the conference phase, it was an idea to create some kind of a leadership, a voice for the revolution outside, because the inside was never, in fact, given the opportunity to develop its own leadership. I mean, unlike Egypt, Tunisia, even Libya, where leaders came from within, the level of repression in Syria will not allow something like this to happen. The leaders from within, they were in prison, they were assassinated. They were always, forced to leave the country. So that was phase one. Phase two was the creation of the Syrian National Council. It was a different level in which different groups got together and formed this group with, again, clear platform, with the two objectives of, in fact, leading transition into a democratic Syria without Bashar al-Assad in it. After that, we felt the Syrian National Council reached a certain deadlock, that it reached certain limits. So we felt we needed to expand a little bit. And so the new coalition was created last November, included, in addition to the SNC, Syrian National Council, representative of local councils. Those are the councils which were formed inside Syria, 14 representatives representing the 14 provinces of Syria, governorate. They were part of the new coalition. And in addition to these two groups, there was the public figures, the activists, the opposition leading figures. That's what constituted the coalition. Immediately after that, in a meeting in Morocco, the coalition was recognized by 114 countries as the legitimate representative of the Syrian people. And that recognition, of course, included the US. So that's a kind of a brief.
And do you consider yourself an interim government, or is that how you view it?
Well, we view the coalition with about 70 members as a mini parliament. And from its inception, we had the idea that we need to have an executive branch of the coalition, which we are in the process of creating an interim government. We hope that will materialize within the next 2 weeks. We had the vision of unifying all of the Free Syrian Army units under one umbrella. And so parallel to the coalition, there was the work of the Supreme Military Council under the command of General Salim Idris, somebody that I think many of you might have heard this name. And in fact, our friends did help bring together all of these factions of the FSA. The FSA now, the Supreme Military Council, does command more than 80% of the fighters on the ground. So you have an executive branch, you have a legislative branch, and we have a small kind of legal judicial committee within the coalition, which is the basis of a judiciary. So that's the structure of the coalition.
So we'll talk about that 20%.
Okay.
If you don't control in a minute.
Okay.
All right. So let's get into the meat of the matter. If you could bring up slide 6, please. So, as you will correct me, I know some of these numbers are already out of date, you're telling me.
Right.
But certainly the death toll is more than 70,000. We had, when we last looked, it was 2 million people displaced, but now you are telling me it's 3 million.
It's actually about close to 4 million.
All right.
Yeah.
And if you go to slide 4, these numbers come from the United Nations, which, obviously the numbers aren't quite as up to date. But we have the most recent is more than 750,000 people who are official refugees. You're telling me now that's over 1 million, is that
That's
correct?
over 1 million according to the UN agencies. That number, the threshold of 1 million already passed.
All right.